Hi everybody, welcome. I hope you're all having a good conference so far, and yeah, maybe we can contribute a little bit to that. Before we start, a quick word of introduction. So, as mentioned, my name is Alexander Kirchner. I have worked in monetization and free-to-play games for about 10 years, and 3 of those at Inno.
Yeah, and my name is Sarah Pagels, and I've been working as a CRM manager at InnoGames for about 5 years now.
All right, so that begs the question, who is InnoGames? And yeah, you might know one of those games, maybe Forge of Empires is our biggest game. And yeah, we are a free-to-play developer and publisher. So our main business model is in-app purchases, so there's no, traditionally at least, no ad monetization or anything like that. And we're traditionally coming from browser, and obviously in the last years we've expanded a lot into mobile. Yeah, millions of players worldwide. We have over 400 employees in Hamburg. And there's 9 people in the CRM team, which includes both of us. So that leads us to what is CRM at InnoGames. So we define CRM as any attempt to increase the lifetime value of our players through targeted communication. And that basically involves 2 big areas of focus. One is a more traditional, I guess, CRM topic is retention. Also includes reactivation of users, right? So any sort of attempt to keep players in the game or get them back into the game if they've already left. But the other side is targeted communication in the sense of specialized or privatized offers. So that's more our area of expertise and what we're mainly going to be talking about. So the biggest measuring factor, how do we actually measure this on a very basic level? Our main KPI is always the average revenue per user, meaning in our concrete case, we select a user for a certain campaign and then we see how much on average per selected user we actually make here. So that brings us close to what we want to talk about today. The so-called user journey, right? So there's a lot of detail on here, don't pay too much attention. Basically, if you imagine the life cycle of a user that a user will actually go through when he plays the game, there's a lot of opportunities for us to increase the value of those users at various steps. And concrete examples, so we're going to talk about how we go about our process of running one of those measures, which we call a campaign, so one of those campaigns. And specifically, the example we have for you here will be a campaign where we try to increase payer conversion, so trying to get users that already play the game to become pay users. And Sarah, maybe you can shed some light.
Yes. So first, to give you a bit of context, these are the starter packages that we implemented in Forge of Empires a couple of years ago. The main focus of these packages is diamonds, which is the in-game premium currency. And on the higher price points, you also receive some valuable in-game items and resources. When we implemented these starter packages, we paid attention to include some of our best practices. The first one is price self-selection, meaning we don't just offer players one package at one price point, but several to choose from. Then we also added a payback mechanic, which basically means that the player receives a specific amount of diamonds over 7 days. And through this, we achieve a retention effect because, in order for players to get the full value out of their package, they have to log in repeatedly. And third is that these offers cover a pretty wide range of prices. So it starts at $4.99 and goes up to $49.99. There is one little disadvantage, though, of these packages, and that is the relatively high starting price. So not every player will be willing to spend almost €5 on a game that they just started playing. And yeah, with choosing the starting price, we might miss out on converting the players that have a lower willingness to pay. So basically, this was the issue that we were facing, and we're going to show you now how we fixed it by taking you through our campaign creation process. First, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the steps involved in the campaign process, and then we're going to go into each step individually. Step number 1 is an idea workshop where we generate new campaign ideas. Then the best ideas of those move on to the potential analysis. Once we have decided that the campaign has potential, we coordinate the implementation with our stakeholders. Then we move on to the actual A/B test of the campaign, and finally, we analyze the results. So yeah, about the idea workshop, what basically happens at this stage is we get together as a team with a specific focus topic. And these topics can be, for example, global sales or VIP-specific campaigns, or in our example, it would be early conversion. And what we do is basically we use different creativity techniques like brainstorming and mind mapping. We also draw on data from the game and from previous A/B tests to identify best performers and also identify possible gaps in our user journey. Then we fill out idea sheets for each idea that is generated. And finally, we cluster the ideas and prioritize them based on a dot voting. So coming back to our example, one idea that came out of this idea workshop for the early conversion was a follow-up offer to the starter packages with a discount. So basically, we wanted to focus on the smallest one of these packages and put a discount on it. And yeah, this idea was prioritized high in our team, and then it moved on to the potential analysis.
Right, so, oh, thank you. So potential analysis, as the name suggests, we try to find a way to estimate how valuable this campaign could be. And I'll just walk you through very quickly what we do. So here you can see a very beautiful Excel document, or at least part of a document. And well, we start off sort of reiterating the idea, so we have it in front of us. But then it really starts with, we have an integrated data cube that's lying behind this Excel sheet. And whenever we do a campaign, we classify that campaign in a lot of different ways. So is it a push, is it about push notifications? Is it about interstitials or pop-ups in the game? What kind of markets are we trying to do this in? What kind of offer is it, right? Is it a so-called pay bonus, so you buy a currency and you get extra currency, or is it a bundle where you get some extra items? So there's a lot of different ways that we classify our campaigns, and what this allows us to do is when we plan a campaign, such as in this case, we can enter the parameters that this campaign is supposed to have, and the cube will give us, in a certain time frame, we can obviously choose this, gives us some historical results of previous tests that also fit these categories. In this case, let's say we had a test before that yielded a 5% uplift for the users that fit these parameters. In the next step, we would do a simulation. So we we simulate how many users would fall into this campaign. So with the parameters that we choose, how many users in a month would actually fall into this campaign. Now, before you note this down or something, a quick disclaimer, obviously all these numbers have been modified. So I don't think it'll be that valuable to note those down. In the next step, well, we get a quick overview of how our control groups and our test groups and stuff would look like. And then we get to the heart, I guess, of this analysis. So what we would do here is for those players that we simulated would fall into this campaign, would fit these categories in a given month, we look at their current actual performance, right? So we look at specifically how high is the payer share from the moment of selection within 30 days. So we select a user for a campaign or a range of users for a campaign, and then within 30 days, in this a little bit modified, made-up example, let's say we have a payer share of 5%. So 5% of the users we select will make a payment within 30 days. And those that do make a payment, again, the height of their payments or the average revenue per paying user, let's say is 20%, 20 euros. So overall, this gives us a value per selected user within 30 days of €1. So that's our basis. That's what we currently have in the game for those specific users. So obviously, this also yields a certain revenue within 30 days, obviously. So we would then say, how high do we actually expect the uplift in terms of total revenue or average revenue per user, which is the same percentage uplift? How high do we estimate this to be? And of course, as we saw, there's some historical data that informs this decision, but there's also our experience that allows us to say, okay, well, under these conditions, we expect a little bit of a higher uplift or lower uplift or something like that. Now, those 5% could obviously come in a different combination of things. We could have a higher payer share with the same ARPPU, so revenue per payer, or we could have a higher revenue per paying payer with the same conversion rate to being a payer. So this just gives us a little bit of an overview of what could happen or what would have to happen to reach this goal of 5%. And of course, that also results in an estimation of how much we can expect in terms of revenue per month or per year, or how many additional payers this would actually mean for us in a month or per year. Last but not least, we have a small estimator telling us if the data we put in there is correct, so we do actually achieve a 5% uplift with these amount of selected users and so on. The test will have to run at least 5 weeks in this case to reach significant values. All right, so once we have done this potential analysis for a lot of different ideas, we can just do it, or can we?
No, we can't.
Okay.
Because there's actually quite a lot of stakeholders involved before we can move forward with the campaign. The most important one is obviously the game, because this is where the offer is going to be placed, and the game must have a say in the final offer, basically. So what happens is we approach them with an offer briefing. We usually already have a pretty good idea what kind of content should be in the offer, what kind of extra value we want to give out, and so on. But we still have to talk to game design to finalize the offer, because we don't want to break the in-game economy or cannibalize any other monetization aspects of the game. So when the offer is finalized, the game then gives us a timeline in which they will be able to implement the offer so that we can plan accordingly. Next, we also talk to payment. The payment department at InnoGames is in charge of maintaining all the cash shops across all games. So they also, they provide the price points for us. There's already a pretty wide range of price points implemented in the game. But if we want new price points, especially for very high or very low priced offers, then they need to provide them for us. Another very important stakeholder of ours is the graphics department, because they are in charge of actually designing the in-game pop-up that the players will see in the game. So we tell them what kind of content we want to give the players, and they basically put everything together, make it look nice, and give us a final version of the visuals. Last but not least is community management. They're actually the most important link between the game and the players, so they can anticipate pretty well how players will perceive the offer that we're planning to do. Whether the players will think it's valuable, or whether we maybe should change something about it. So once all the stakeholders are on board and everybody's happy, then we can move on to the actual A/B test. And first, a couple of best practices regarding A/B testing. The first important one, the most important one for us is to always include a control group that reflects the status quo. So in our example, we want to test a new offer at a point in the player's lifetime where they currently don't receive an offer. So in this case, a control group just receives nothing, basically. The second point is we really try to focus on only ever testing one variable at a time. We want to avoid multivariate testing because if we test 4 or 5 things at a time, then we can't really ever tell which one of these had contributed to the effect that the campaign has. And this is especially bad if an A/B test is not successful, because then we have to start from 0 again. The third point, also very important, is QA. So we have to make sure, first of all, that the offer works as intended, and that players receive the items that they're supposed to receive, that the user flow is correct, and all of that. And the second point is the test setup. So we have to make sure that with regards to the test setup, everything is 100% correct. And that the test is set up in a way that we can expect to receive reasonable data from it that we can work with. So to get back to our example, this is the in-game pop-up that players in the test group received 2 days after having been targeted with the initial starter packages. As you can see, we added an eye catcher that indicates that this is a special offer. We also included the original price of the package with the strike-through price, just to drive home the point that this is really special and you should probably buy this now. So when you click on this in-game pop-up, you get to the cash shop, where again, we discounted the smallest one of those packages. We highlighted the background to make it stand out a bit more, and also, again, added the eye catcher here. We decided to keep in the $4.99 package, so the exact same content, but at a higher price point, as an anchor, and also so that players have the direct comparison again. Also, if you remember the initial starter packages, we had this expensive one for $49.99. We took this out here because our goal is to show players only offers that are relevant for them. So at this point, they've been playing the game for a couple of days already, and they still haven't made a purchase, so we're pretty sure that at this point, they're not interested in spending 50 euros on an offer. So we took it out, and this also, again, puts the focus more on the new, cheaper offer, which is what we want them to buy. So this test then ran for a couple of weeks, and Alex is now going to tell you more about the results.
Right, so I'll try to keep it very short. But first, again, two or three quick pointers on general guiding principles. So obviously, we always try to look at data as long-term as possible, right? So it doesn't really benefit us or the company if we make a lot of money today, if it means that we're not going to make that money tomorrow, right? So as long as possible, but as short-term as necessary, because we obviously need to reach decisions and actually start earning money. So our trade-off is usually about 30 days that we look at. So we look at the behavior of people 30 days after we select them for a campaign. Second point would be obviously to try to find causal relationships, right? So it's all very well to know, okay, this group performed better or this offer performed better, but how exactly, right? So what price points were bought, or were there any follow-up purchases for those users that bought, or this kind of thing. Third point would be specific sub-target groups that we already know about, right? So this could be country. How did this offer perform in different markets? How did it perform on the different platforms, and so on? Did it perform, you get the idea. So these three would be our guiding principles. Now, getting back to the concrete example, I'm sure you haven't forgotten by now, but here it is again. So in terms of payer share 30, so within 30 days of selecting people for this campaign versus our existing setup, we reached about 50% additional payers. Now, the average revenue per paying player, as you might imagine, went down. That's because this lower price point will lead to a lower average of purchases. So we lost 28% in terms of ARPPU. Now, what obviously interests us is how does all of this work together to give us our overall revenue per selected user. And yeah, you guessed it, we probably wouldn't be showing you this if it hadn't been successful. We actually reached a plus 8% revenue per selected user for this target group, which is for us is a great success. And yeah, so that means if we are successful in a campaign like this, it will get rolled out to all users. So from the moment that we realize this, we'll implement this for all of the users. Now, it wouldn't be a circle, right, if we didn't include this last step. So from the analysis going back to the next idea workshop, what do we do? Well, we obviously try to look for ways we can apply what we learned with these successful results and apply that to generate new ideas. In this case, we could think about, well, if this worked so well, offering this discount for lower willingness to pay users, maybe we can have an even higher discount for certain markets where we know the concentration of lower willingness to pay users is higher. And the same thing can be said about platforms. Obviously, we know there's platform-specific differences. So maybe it might be an idea to offer different follow-up discounts for different platforms. So yeah, that brings us full circle. Thank you very much, and any questions are welcome.